what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sensation Nation. This is actually one of the last recordings of this season for season 4. I have a good person here, a good friend of mine, to help me talk about another great topic. In this case, we are talking about the legal system. I am entitling it the legal system, but no, we're not going to get out here and start bashing the legal system and things like that. The reason I am bringing this young gentleman on, Micah Poulson, great friend of mine, is because he is now a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen. I will give him an opportunity to kind of talk about how we know each other and things of that sort, but I could not think of a better person to help me just kind of unpack and digest the legal system itself, what it means to be a lawyer, what it took to become a lawyer, the whole nine. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Micah Poulson.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, sir.
Yeah, hear that voice? He's got that MC voice like, hey, I think you're guilty. He's got here we go. He's got the right voice for it. This is perfect for me. Not only is this one of the last episodes of the season, but I'm actually, as you can see, doing an in-person recording. Most of my recordings have been done because the folks that I interview are geographically separated. So a lot of them get conducted via Zoom. So we have an opportunity here where I actually get to do an in-person recording with this young gentleman. The only other in-person recording I've ever done was with my son on my very first episode. And I look back at that episode and I realized, man, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But my son, he was the tribute. We talked about music as I figured out the equipment, but Michael's here to kind of help me, get better at recording live and in person. So
I'll do my best.
He's got that voice, and so people, ladies, don't go get into my inbox and asking me who he is and where he lives and all that other stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to get into the legal system with young Micah Poulson here. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we begin and start digging into questions and asking all kinds of fun stuff, kind of tell the audience, tell the people who you are, what you do, how we know each other, the whole nine.
Right. So do you go by Shooter up here? Or what do you
Shooter. That's what everybody calls me. Shooter.
Just making sure.
Somebody called me by my first name one time, and I kept walking. I didn't know they were even talking to me.
Okay.
So.
We met through ROTC. I think it was my first senior year in college because I had another year. I did a super senior year as well.
Yep.
But you were like my mentor, and you became a role model, and now we're just really good friends.
Yep. 100%.
But what was I don't remember the position exactly that you had.
I was one of the assistant professors of aerospace studies, kind of essentially like a college professor, if you will.
Right,
kind
exactly.
of teaching the young cadets how to one day become great leaders.
Yeah, and I think it was just the way you carried yourself that I just looked up to you, and then I think I asked you to be my mentor one day, and you just started giving me advice, encouraging me to, work to my full potential, and now we're here. And what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, what your current role is, like what you do, who you are. Like I take long walks on the beach and all that other stuff. So
yeah, as you said, I'm a lawyer. I work for a corporate law firm in D.C. Who I am, I think I'm just someone that's trying to grow every day, get better professionally, personally.
Okay.
I do martial arts. I'm doing Muay Thai right now.
Oh.
But I just started and I got a long way to go.
This man does martial arts too, folks. So not only does he kick butt in the courtroom, he kicks butt, period. Like, you know what I mean? Like if the jury gets out of line, I assume he can take things there if he decides to do so. He's being humble, ladies and gentlemen. He talked about being a productive member of society, and then I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to offer some mentorship. And I will tell you, when I offer mentorship, I go full scale, and it's not just let me tell you all the things you want to hear, need to hear. There was probably some conversations when he first came in, and I was like, hey man, you need to start doing blah, 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 blah. Right?
Exactly.
And he came into the ROTC program at UNC Chapel Hill, and amazing orator, just can speak well on the microphone. And sometimes when you hear people say, oh, you can speak so well, and you can be like, well, what are you trying to say? But I have an affinity for just good public speaking. And so I understood just what kind of talent and skills you had when you came into the organization.
Thank you.
So I know you had a few doubts, or you were trying to figure out if doing ROTC was for you and things like that. And you went from there to being the cadet wing commander, meaning you were in charge of the program when it was all said and done, right?
I went from probably just being honest, struggling in the program, struggling to put my uniform on, struggling to march correctly, to being humbled, for the first year and a half until, I don't know, one day it started to finally click, and my grades went up, and I started doing better in the program, started to believe in myself, and I found like with the success, they would give you more responsibility.
100%.
And then it's just starting opportunities to speak, and then like showing what I could do, and then before I knew it, they had named me cadet wing commander. So it was a journey, and I was shocked.
That's the beauty of it, though, right? And so for the folks listening and or watching right now, what you just heard was the importance of, one, relationships, and two, mentorship as a whole. Because again, as you mentioned, started out as a student, and then we ended up doing some two-way mentorship, because mentorship is two-way. What folks see right now are two great friends. I mean, not only were we kind of in a teacher-student relationship, but he ultimately became an officer in the United States Air Force. We, ironically enough, deployed together, right? So here we are in the deployed location smoking cigars. And as we were just like looking at the sky like, man, this is crazy how we end up here, right? And then the relationship continues. So relationships are important. Mentorship's important. It's a two-way thing. And it's a journey, as you already mentioned. So with that journey, you went off to be an officer in the United States Air Force. You left the Air Force honorably. I need to make sure that people know that. He left the Air Force honorably. He did his time and did a great job in the Air Force. But you elected to not stay. You did not feel that pressure to say, I'm afraid to get out, whatever. And sometimes you have to do different things. Sometimes you have to do things differently. You had a goal. You accomplished it. You had another goal. You accomplished it. But ultimately, I knew that you said one day you wanted to be a lawyer. And here you are today as a lawyer. So what made you want to become a lawyer?
I wanted to go back to school, graduate school. I felt like I did well at UNC, but I felt like I didn't do my best academically. And so I wanted to go back and just prove to myself that I could compete and, excel at a really good school. I started to excel at the end at UNC, but I felt like I could do better and do more. And so I talked to another professor, like a mentor, and he said, I think you would be a good lawyer. You like speaking, you like writing, you like arguing, and I think you have a good mind for it. And so
awesome.
It was just that. I didn't know what else to do, and it made sense. And so that was my plan going into the Air Force. I thought I was going to be a JAG, but once I started to realize more about what I was passionate about, related to like civil rights and giving back, and then also just having the freedom to see what else was out there, I elected to finish my time, save my money, and then use the GI Bill to go to law school.
Very nice. Had a plan, stuck to it, had some intermediate goals, stuck to it, got it done, and here you stand. You mentioned something about being effective at arguing. Does that give you an advantage or disadvantage in your relationship?
I think I'm good at arguing outside of relationships. The girls I date are very smart, and I feel like women are good at just like, I had to take my time, and I feel like women are just, by the time the argument has started, they already have bullet points and then rebuttals, and I lose usually. I don't know.
All right, so it's okay to lose in the house, but he wins in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, before I start digging into the questions more deeply, do you want to throw a disclaimer out there about your views about whatever your opinions are with the questions that I ask you?
Yeah, I just want to say, although I'm enjoying my law firm, my views are my own. I'm only can speak for myself as an individual and not on behalf of my law firm.
Absolutely. You talked early on when we began this conversation about the journey you've been on, right? It has been a journey. It still is a journey. You're still on that journey. But people look at you, and if I'm being quite frank, there's going to be some people, some young men, some young women watching from all races, all colors, all creeds. I also know that there will be some young minority males that are probably looking at you going, man, he's a lawyer, right? And it may seem unachievable to some now, but when they see someone sitting in the seat and they hear your story and they hear your journey, you can hear that it's possible, it's feasible, right? So can you talk a little bit about your journey? Was it always destined for you? You were born and they're just like, he's going to be a lawyer, and you're just like got the plan laid out. Talk to me about that.
Well, honestly, I had a pretty tough upbringing, if I can be honest.
Please talk to us.
Like, my parents are very educated. I will say that. My dad has a PhD and my mom has an MBA. But growing up, my dad struggled with addiction. And so we struggled a lot financially as a lot of his resources were going to that. And my mom, I think, just had a lot on her plate. Sure. And so I definitely had really tough experiences where you're like moving around a lot. I've been evicted before. I lived in a motel. So I guess if you're hearing this, whatever you've been through doesn't mean where you have to finish.
Ooh, it's not where you start.
It's not where you start. And I did have to find mentors, and I found that in RTC because I was discouraged and I didn't feel like I was going to be successful. But really meeting you, like someone that had a tough upbringing too, from my understanding.
Yep, absolutely.
Who was successful. That was really what it was for me. Like, okay, he did it, so I can do it.
Wow.
And you worked so hard. Like, you were smart, but you also worked really hard. Yeah. And I had the same thing. I was like smart. I felt like, and most people, I think, if you apply yourself, you will do well. But you showed me how to like work hard.
Wow.
And so once I met a role model that I could relate to, that was still cool and still laughed and seemed like a guy I grew up with, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply myself. And that really was the difference at UNC.
Wow.
I didn't get any smarter. I just started to work hard and believe in myself. And the confidence came. And so I've done a lot, but I want to be clear, like I've been discouraged. I thought about dropping out from UNC. I didn't think I was going to make it in ROTC. So, like you said, where you start doesn't have to be where you finish.
That's right.
If you will.
I need you to understand, like, how important it is for people, myself included, to hear what you're saying, because a lot of folks just see the destination.
Yep.
I highlight this a lot. People see social media and they go, "Oh man." And they feel bad about themselves, and I'm so behind, and I didn't get started right away, and I'm just at a disadvantage. And I think it's just as important to share some of the failures, some of the resilience it took to overcome those failures, as it is the successes. So I appreciate hearing you say, I had struggles growing up, from a parental standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, from a wanting to give up standpoint.
Maturity.
Maturity, yeah, absolutely. And so, and talking to those people, you got those people watching and whatnot, it's really important for those folks to actually see where you are now, but also hear where you have come from and what it took to get there. And I would like to imagine it wasn't easy, right?
No, it wasn't easy. And you're all right. I think people see what you're doing on Instagram and they say, oh, this guy's just, everything's been a success.
Right.
Like I said, it took me 5 years to graduate from college.
There you go.
It was a 4-year degree.
Right.
And I finished really strong in the military, but I struggled at my first base with the responsibility, like handling it and just maturity, having to grow up. And so, there was highs and lows to all my experiences.
Sure.
And even law school, like I was really successful, but every semester wasn't the same. I had ups and downs. So
I'm going to ask you a question that it has the potential to wipe out everything you just said, depending on how you answer. Because we go through a lot, we overcome a lot, and sometimes we see that shiny object and we start chasing that shiny object.
Yep.
And when we get it, we go, oh, man, it wasn't as fruitful as I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
So my question flat out to you is, are you happy with your decision? And by decision, I mean your decision to become a lawyer.
Oh, I'm very happy with my decision to become a lawyer.
Okay.
And I am. I'm like completely happy with the decision. I'm glad I went to law school. I enjoyed law school. But your life, it's not, I think sometimes I thought, you finish your degree and then everything's going to make sense.
Sure.
And life's just not like that. You still have stress or worry or, I thought this job was going to be my long-term job.
Sure.
Maybe it won't be. So,
Sure. Okay.
But no, I'm very thankful that I decided to do this.
Okay. A lot of times when people hear about professions like, certain cultures, like you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer, because those are synonymous with success in a lot of cultures, right? And if you achieve one of those type of professions, then it's almost like it's a status, like you've made it,
Right.
So with regard to those professions, oftentimes they are riddled with the opinion that you guys make a lot of money.
I didn't know where that was going. Thank you.
So people go, oh man,
my family talking.
So I bring that up to say, because right now, I'm a member of the military. I'm proud with what I do. And as you mentioned, I come from humble beginnings too, right? And so when you're able to overcome some of those things, the perception can be, oh, you must be rich.
You got it.
You got a lot of money now.
Cashed out, huh?
Nothing that you said up until this point was driven by money.
Oh, no.
I never heard you once say you wanted to make a lot of money. You wanted a career that set you up for success and all the other good stuff. But I'm going to ask you the question because people are wondering, like, do all lawyers make a lot of money?
All lawyers do not make a lot of money. Okay. If you do corporate law, it makes a lot of money.
Okay. What would you consider to be corporate law?
If you work like at a big law firm that represents corporations.
Gotcha.
So if you represent like Meta or Apple, if you work for law firms that represent these multi-billion-dollar corporations, you make good money.
Okay.
If you represent poor people, well, you're not going to make a lot of money because poor people don't have a lot of money. Or if you're like a public defender. Someone that has a public defender can't afford to pay for you, so the state's paying you. Okay. And it depends on the state, but generally you're not going to make nearly as much as someone who's working for a corporation.
Oh, so it's also based on what state you work for.
Yep. So like I think in Florida, their public defenders make probably $40,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
In New York, I think it's $80,000 a year.
That's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yep.
Now, you said Florida?
Florida.
Wow.
And the prosecutors make generally more than most public defenders.
Oh.
So it just depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
You have the potential to make good money as a lawyer, but if you're doing more public interest rather than private interest, you're going to probably make a lot less.
I just learned a lot, which is why I do these episodes. First, I didn't realize that how much money is made is driven by what state you work in. Yep. In addition to that, I didn't realize that, prosecutors versus the defense, also has an impact on how much money you make as well. So with that, you talked about corporate law, you talked about prosecutors, you talked about defense, you talked about being able to help poor people, things of that sort. What is Micah Poulson's goal with regard to being a lawyer? What is your ultimate goal in the legal system?
I think, and I'm still trying to figure out my long-term goal, but the goal is to find something that I can do that I found to be like a passion or fulfilling, that I'm excited to do every day, that also pays enough to I can enjoy my life. Sure. And so I'm looking at a wide range of things. There's some like private public interest jobs where you are doing civil rights, but you're representing people who might work in corporate America. So it pays pretty well or decently well. Okay. And so, but I'm moving to Miami in January.
Miami, Florida. It's in Florida. It's in Florida.
And I'm working for a judge for a year, and so I'll get to see a lot of different cases. And so I'm hoping that will kind of give me an insight of what the long-term plan will be.
Very good.
I honestly don't know.
You don't know yet. And you don't have to know. Yep. In my opinion, I don't think you have to know. I think, again, that's part of the journey. Yep. Right? Sometimes you hop in the car and it's like, we're just going to take a drive and wherever we end up, we end up. Yep. Sometimes you put it in the GPS and you know exactly where you're going and you know what stops you have along the way. And I think either is okay depending on what you want to do. So you talked about, you threw out a number and I knew that was kind of just a rough guess or whatnot. But $40,000, people are going to hear that. Some people are going to hear that and go, whoa, that's a lot of money. It depends on where you're from, like what you're doing, with your life, right? That is a lot of money to some people. So $40,000 a year is a lot to some. But for a lot of folks also, especially if you affiliated with being a lawyer, $40,000 a year, $40,000 a year doesn't sound like much, especially if it is also accompanied by the bills and the student loans that it took to become a lawyer in the first place. Right. So how do those lawyers that take that route of getting paid less, how do they survive? It's almost like a teacher's salary, right? Yep. And it's one of the most important professions out there, but they're struggling financially. How do lawyers make that money? So
if you're working public interest, most states, and it might be a federal program, I'm not 100% sure, but if you work for 10 years, they'll forgive your loans.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So it has to qualify for that program, but there is that. And then a lot of people will start out in corporate law to pay off their loans because it pays significantly more than that. And then they'll move on to doing something that they're more passionate about, helping people. So that's what a lot of people are doing.
That's smart. See? Yep. That's good. Eventually, as you said, you don't know yet, not quite, but you mentioned some may go to do corporate law, things like that, and eventually do something they're more passionate about if corporate law happens to not be that thing.
Exactly.
There's a phrase or term out there called pro bono, which you educated me on a little bit before we started recording. When you hear people say, hey, I work pro bono, for the average citizen that doesn't know what that means, they know they need some legal help. Maybe some of those less fortunate people that you mentioned, they need some legal help. They go searching through the internet. I was about to say phone book. I was about to date myself. They go searching through the internet and they find a lawyer. Yep. And a lawyer that's cheap. They walk in and they have a case that seems to be a surefire win. And the lawyer says, don't even worry about it. I'm going to do this pro bono. Mm-hmm. The average citizen may or may not know what that means. And they may, hey, Siri, what does pro bono mean, right? What is pro bono? What does that mean to you?
It just means you're doing it for free.
Okay.
And so a lot of corporate law firms do a lot of work pro bono. Like I'm working on some things pro bono. And it's just because the corporate fee is so high, most people can't afford that unless you are a corporation. Mm-hmm. And so they want to give back in some way. And so you do some of your work pro bono.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So you mentioned there was a keyword, some of their work.
Yep.
Because I was also going to ask the question if lawyers are out there and they're doing the part of the legal system that they're passionate about, and maybe they're at the lower end of the pay scale and they're doing a lot of pro bono work. I'm like, how are they eating? Things like that. So it's not like 100% of their cases.
No. And usually people that do pro bono are probably working in corporate America, So basically, like my firm, I think the requirement's like 2,000 billable hours a year.
Okay.
And so, which I hope that's not like too complicated, but basically, like you get 250 hours of my pro bono, of my overall 2,000 requirement can be pro bono.
Oh, okay.
So I can spend 250 hours of my yearly requirement helping people.
Oh, wow. That's driven by what the firm says.
Yep.
See, again.
And so the firm's not going to make money on that, but they... I work at a firm that does care about trying to help give back and do things in the community, and so I can spend some amount of time dedicated to that, but not most of my time, obviously. I
see. This is another great segue too, because you have such a varying experience at such a young age. You've attended college, but before that, you overcame some obstacles. Mm-hmm. You went through college. Did you have a scholarship in college, by the way? I can't remember.
They gave me a good amount of money to go to UNC.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a scholarship.
Some of that was paid for. You pushed your way through. You learned how to be a great leader, as a cadet, and ended up leading that organization. You ultimately became an officer, meaning that you're leading the men and women that are under your charge, which I think each one of those experiences builds upon the other, which creates the product that you see here today. Now, there's obviously something that you can actually converse about here, because in the military, you have the officer category, you have the enlisted category. Neither of them, in my opinion, is better than the other.
Right.
I've done both, by the way, right? But there is a difference between those two with regard to pay.
Yep.
Officers, for those that don't know, get paid a little bit more than the enlisted folks, just similar to a corporation where you may have a manager that just graduated college and they walk in and go, I'm in charge. And You've got that person that's been at the company forever who actually knows what is going on around in the organization, but they may be getting paid a little bit less. So monetary disparity between officer and enlisted.
Yep.
But you also touched on the fact that there's a monetary disparity between prosecutors and defense.
Right.
One of the things I heard you say was that prosecutors get paid more money. Why do you think that is?
Probably the politics of it.
Okay.
Like, prosecutors are going to be the ones that charge you with a crime. And so I'm trying to think about the right way to say this. But basically, I don't know exactly why, but we prioritize prosecution more than I would say defense.
Yep, I got you.
I think the best way to put it.
I got it. No, that makes sense to me. I think I understand what you're saying there. So on that note, and on the flip side of that, though, if I'm a lawyer and I know that my monetary value may be a little less, what would make me want to say I want to be a defense lawyer over a prosecutor?
Well, people that really believe in the legal system and constitutional rights, and that everyone should have an attorney when they are being accused of a felony or a crime, and recognizing that if these people, like a lot of times poor people don't have someone to represent them,
Sure.
you can get railroaded
Yep.
the legal system's hard to navigate for
Yep.
most people, but especially if you don't come from money or you don't have a lot of education.
Yep.
So having somebody in the corner to fight for you in case that you are innocent, right? And it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Sure.
So there's people that usually one of my friends is a public defender, and she truly believes in what she's doing.
I love it.
It's usually like people that really believe in using the law to help somebody.
I love it. You helped me think about something I talk to my wife about all the time, and I love seeing people being passionate about what they do.
Yep.
I don't care what it is.
Yep.
If
Same.
you're handing out towels at the gym and you love your job, like that motivates me. Like
Yep.
otherwise, if I'm at a drive-through and someone's in a customer service job and they have the nastiest attitude, after I get my food, I get my food first. I get my food first. And I take my food and I go, hey, you should probably try a new profession. Like, you realize you're in a customer service job, right? You know, that kind of thing.
I'm sure
if
they
you don't
do.
like customer service, don't do a customer service job. That's my opinion. But just having that passion, right? So whether you decide to be a defense lawyer or whatnot, because you are passionate about it, I think that's amazing. And you mentioned something about innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
What I want to also debunk is, we see a lot of TV shows about lawyers and cases, and in our minds, we see what we think being a lawyer is really all about,
Right.
and most of the time, some of that stuff you see on television is not real, but the innocent until proven guilty. So when I watch a legal show or a law show, they depict it sometimes that it's not necessarily sometimes about someone being innocent or guilty. It's about which lawyer can tell the best story. And I've seen some behind the scenes where the defense and the prosecution are making deals and well, this is what's going to happen, whatever. I just want to know your thoughts about that. And I want you to be careful because I'm going to protect this young man too.
Thank you.
I want you to be careful about it. But what are your thoughts if I just throw out innocent or guilty as compared to the best storytelling? What are your thoughts about that? And the best way that you can put it.
In the best way that I can put it.
Without getting yourself in trouble.
Without getting myself in trouble. No, I think it's a lot of what you can prove and what the evidence because
that's good.
if they have let's say they have evidence that you were guilty of a crime.
Yeah.
But they got it in a way that was unconstitutional. They didn't respect your constitutional rights when they obtained it. So that if you have a good defense attorney, that they can exclude that evidence because they violated your rights to get it.
Got it.
And so I would say the story is important, like how you communicate to the jury and the explaining and using things simply. It's like if you connect with people and say, this is what happened, that it may look like this was, but he wasn't there. And then you go through the case and give it a lot of reasonable doubt. That's they have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty of this crime.
Reasonable doubt.
And so if there's a lot of what's the word? If there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of situations that I'm not sure if this person did it, then
right.
And then according to the rules, basically you're supposed to, if not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, if someone questions the evidence, questions the motivation, if the lawyer doesn't do their job to convince the jury, then they should be let go. Because you don't the way I think one of my professors said it, he would rather 9 guilty people be free than 1 innocent person go to jail.
Wow. Ooh, that's huge. Rather 9 innocent people. Say that
9 guilty people.
9 guilty people go free than 1 innocent person go to jail. Wow. Yeah. That's huge. That's going to resonate with me for a while.
And so the bar should be high because if you're wrong, then it just kind of undermines the credibility of the system completely.
That's very good.
And the faith in the system.
And I think you did a good job with answering it without getting yourself in trouble. So he's a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen. He is a lawyer. You said the bar should be high. As you can tell, I pick up on all the words, right? Speaking of bar, how hard was it for you to pass the bar?
The bar, I mean, you've taken so many tests in law school that taking another test isn't... for me, some people get test anxiety, and I recognize that, and some people get so worried about the exam they can't do well on that. That's not where I struggle. So I passed, I studied, and I did well. So for me, it wasn't the actual test that was hard. Is wanting to study because you had to study for the bar after you graduate, and you just had this big ceremony. You're tired of school, and then you immediately have to go back to your wherever you're studying apartment and just study for 2 months. Nobody really. That's what it was. The hard part. You just don't. Maybe you just don't feel like it.
Discipline. It's like you got to have that discipline. It's like I could be doing this.
Exactly.
But, that kind of thing.
I wanted to be doing anything else, honestly. And my girlfriend at the time was like, if you don't study for this, you're not gonna retake it. And so that kind of got okay. Right.
So you need some self-discipline out there, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's not easy. You can't just wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna be a lawyer. And I'm gonna go here and pass this bar. You can't clep it. You can't clep the bar, ladies and gentlemen.
No, you can't.
You gotta
Unfortunately,
you got to put in the work.
Yeah.
Circling back to something you said earlier with the innocent or guilty versus storytelling. Again, you did a great job of explaining it. I'll tell you what I heard, which I think you articulated very well. It's not just about the facts, but it's also about the procedures. Mm-hmm. So you can have the factual data, but if the procedures were not done the way they're supposed to be to acquire that factual data, that is a factor that has to be considered as well.
Yep. And
got it.
You want people to follow the procedure because it can, like I said, it undermines the faith in the system overall.
Got it.
And then even if this person is guilty, but they got say the police, the prosecutor did something unconstitutional to get their verdict. Mm-hmm. It's like an abuse of power, so you don't want to see that get worse and worse and worse.
I see.
Like anything else.
I see. So the profession of being a lawyer is one of those things where you could be loved or hated. Yep. I would imagine, right? You can be loved or hated. Again, watch a lot of television, Netflix or whatever, and people are like, I need my lawyer. That kind of thing. Always a good idea to have a good lawyer, right? Yep. In your corner. So with that takes us to our last question. And an opportunity for you to kind of talk to the audience that's listening, watching. Do you have any advice for anyone that's out there, little Johnny, Sally, or anyone that wants to become a lawyer, or maybe parents that have children that want to become lawyers, or they want their children to become lawyers, whatnot, or and I'm giving you a lot here. It's a lot to work with, but even maybe people seeking advice on how to find a good lawyer, right? Because just as in most professions, it may not necessarily be the person for me. If I'm going to find a counselor per se, right. There's a lot of certified counselors, but I have to find the right counselor. Do you have any advice for anybody? It's your chance to just say, hey, here's my perspective on X, Y, and Z, and just kind of lead the people with some good advice.
On becoming a lawyer and then how to find a lawyer? How to
become a lawyer, how to find a lawyer, or whatever else you want to leave them with.
Okay. So becoming a lawyer, like, I would say talk to lawyers and like if you can ask them questions about their job, so you can, because it's a prestigious job, but you want to find something that you're passionate about, and it's definitely something you can do. It takes a high level of discipline and reading and writing, mm-hmm. but it's like most skills. I think most people can do a lot of things if they apply themselves and have somebody to kind of walk through the steps of how to do it.
Right.
But it's just learning or determining if that's what you want to do.
I see.
Like I like public speaking and writing, and I like what I do. There's also different types of law. Like if you like reading contracts and you don't mind doing that, you don't have to be someone that.
Sounds boring.
Me, it puts me to sleep. Like, if that was being a lawyer, I would never become a lawyer. But you don't. Basically, what I'm saying is just because you don't like public speaking doesn't mean you can't be a lawyer. It wouldn't be a good lawyer. There's a wide range of things lawyers do. So I would say just reach out. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And
how can the people find you on LinkedIn? Just Micah Poulson?
Just Micah Poulson, MICAH POULSON. And I'm happy to meet with anybody because anyone could use advice at times.
Awesome.
So it really is just, I think, getting an idea that you want to do it. And then after that, just finding mentors like you and RTC to help you. They'll encourage you to keep going, to push through on those difficult days.
Awesome.
And then finding a lawyer, I think it's like anything else. Like, do you have a connection with this person? Mm-hmm. And also checking their resume, checking like their records and Googling them basically.
Yep.
And like you would do anything else. Sometimes. Well, actually, like anything else. Use your best judgment.
I hear you. I hear you. I think you just made me think about the Netflix show Better Call Saul or something like that.
Exactly.
You got to be careful with who you're selecting.
Exactly. Like if something tells you this probably isn't the best lawyer, maybe like follow your judgment.
Yeah. Even if it's pro bono?
Even if it's pro bono, because if it's something that you really need help with, you don't want someone to mess that up.
I got you.
So
very good, man.
Yeah,
this has been awesome.
No, it has.
I will tell you, I got educated. Like, no kidding. Like, I do these episodes to try to educate the people, but at the same time, I'm getting educated too. So I appreciate your time.
Of course.
I can't let you go yet because, as those that know well enough, I end every episode with the same routine. This is a 10-question speed round of what do you prefer. I will ask you questions and you tell me which one you prefer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Question number 1. Would you rather win the lottery or land your dream job?
Land my dream job.
Land the dream job. Number 2, test the waters or dive in the deep end?
Test the waters.
Test the waters, as a good lawyer should. Number 3, glass half full or glass half empty?
Glass half full.
Glass half full. Number 4, ketchup or ranch?
That's tough. Oh, man. Ranch.
Ranch it is. Ranch it is.
I don't even know that's tough.
I stumped the lawyer, ladies and gentlemen. I stumped the lawyer.
I guess I already chose ranch, so we'll just go with that.
Question number 5, night or morning?
Morning.
Morning. Number 6, passenger or driver?
Passenger.
Passenger, me too.
Passenger princess.
Number 7, city or countryside?
Countryside.
Good. Number 8, would you rather lose sleep or skip a meal?
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, I know. That's a tough one. That usually gets people thinking.
Lose sleep.
Lose sleep it is. Gotta eat, man.
Gotta eat.
Number 9, shopping online or shopping in the store?
Online.
Online. And last but not least, would you rather go to work late or leave work early?
Leave work early.
Leave work early. I appreciate you for playing, man.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Listen, I want to tell you, as I tell every guest, this time I get to say it to you in person, which is pretty cool. It's a good feeling, actually. I want to say thank you for playing along with the game, number 1, but also just coming on to kind of share your expertise and continuing to give back, because that's exactly what you're doing right now. You're giving back. Hopefully this video will help someone, even if it's only one person. As the saying goes, to the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world. So
wow.
I think you are doing a great deal of goodness in your life.
Thank you.
I want you to be proud of it. I want you to continue to give back and share your experiences, because we need to see more positivity like this.
Thank you.
We need to see more productive members of society doing great things and just kind of setting the example out there to help drown out some of that negativity that we have.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here. We talked a little bit about becoming a lawyer. I call it the legal system, but there's a whole gamut of things we talked about here. I hope that you learned something from it. I hope that you can pass this information on. If it's nothing more than just the baseline of, wow, he had a goal and he accomplished it. Even if it's not about being a lawyer or law school, hopefully you learned this, the very foundational principles that, man, if you want something, go after it, go get it, don't give up. So we appreciate you for dialing in. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out.